Sophie Rain's content is absolute dog shit. The exact same TikTok dances to trending audio that every other 18 to 22-year-old girl on the internet is also doing. Yet last year, she announced that she had made $43 million in her first year on the OnlyFans platform. And this year, she ran it back. Another $50 million for a total of $95 million in just 2 years on OnlyFans. Now, many people are criticizing Sophie or even outright accusing her of lying about these figures. But as a former OnlyFans manager, I've helped creators with a fraction of Sophie's following and clout make millions of dollars. So I have zero doubt that these numbers are accurate. The question I'm interested in isn't whether or not these figures are real. It's how she got there. Last month, a user named Balunzo Brinko, I'm just gonna call him BB, asked a very incisive question in my comments. How is it that an otherwise completely unremarkable teenage girl went from waiting tables to a nearly 9-figure net worth in under 2 years? In this video, I'm going to answer precisely that question. And you'll not only understand how Sophie Rain became the Michael Jordan of selling butthole pics, you'll understand how to do it yourself. The biggest reason I was intrigued by this question is that Sophie Rain's brand is based around the exact kind of low-effort thirst trap that I explicitly advocate against in all of my content. And yet, she's one of, if not the single highest earning creator on the entire platform. So, have I been wrong all along? Even if she's just an exception to the rule, nobody makes $95 million in 2 years by pure dumb luck. And in light of Sophie's incredible success, it would be both intellectually dishonest and potentially very costly for me not to reevaluate my assumptions about brand. So that's exactly what I set out to do. And while I was researching and writing this video, I uncovered some valuable and actionable concepts that you can take with you and incorporate into your social media playbook as a model or an agency. So this video is a principled dissection of what I call the Sophie Rain paradox. The reasons why, despite producing some of the most unremarkable content on socials, Sophie Rain became the queen of OnlyFans. Let's start by seeing if BB's foundational premise, that Sophie's content is in fact all about thirst traps and TikTok dances, actually holds true. Surely a social media superstar with over 33 million followers has some other differentiating factor or a personality that people connect with. Surely she must provide some sort of tangible value to the audience. Nope, never mind. Sophie Rain's content is where trending audio and thirst traps go to die. You've probably heard the term style over substance used to criticize certain works of art. And while I wouldn't say there's even anything particularly stylish about Sophie's socials, it's the closest saying that maps on here. Sophie's emphasis is 1000% on looks. So let's talk about looks. I say in a lot of my content that appearance is no longer the most important determining factor in a creator's earning potential. But Sophie paints a more nuanced picture of the truth, specifically that there are some categories of physical appearance that are easier to monetize than others. And Sophie looks, well, let's call a spade here. While it might be an uncomfortable pill to swallow, Sophie looks like a teenager. And it's important to acknowledge that Sophie's audience is largely composed of ephebophiles who enjoy her content because she has the face and behavioral tendencies of a high school girl and the body of a Paleolithic fertility statue. This is very basic sexual psychology. If you collapsed all of mate preference literature, you'd see that in virtually every meta-analysis ever conducted on how men rate female attractiveness, the top 4 qualities are, in order, youth and fertility, check, waist-to-hip ratio and body shape relative to body mass index, check, facial symmetry and feminine facial features, check, skin, hair, and other health cues, check. After doing OnlyFans management for long enough, OnlyFans models start to feel like interchangeable economic units. This girl is in the goth niche. This girl is in the pog niche, and so on. This is a bad habit. It's lazy and it makes you worse at marketing your creators. The audience consuming the content does not think in those terms and are in fact evaluating each model as an individual, as should you. So if you were to ask all OnlyFans managers to describe Sophie, they'd probably say something like teen niche, Latina niche, TikTok dances, thirst traps. But if you asked all men globally about what the perfect woman looks like, a majority of them are likely to describe someone who looks very much like Sophie Rain. Whether you like it or not, looks are a component of brand. And while there are many creators crushing it on the basis of the substance of their content by being unique, personable, fun, or knowledgeable, which is obviously what I advocate for, When you have a model like Sophie who checks literally every physical box for such a large segment of the population, plus makes adult content, it's very easy to understand why she leans more on that physicality than I would ever recommend for another creator. And it's part of the reason that she's an exception to the rule that substance wins over style. But it's not the only one, or even the most important. In fact, I'd say arguably the biggest contributing factor to Sophie's success is when you're early to a new platform, almost anything works. There's a saying I love in investing that holds true here. Everyone is a genius in a bull market. Sophie's only truly unique quality in terms of content wasn't that she was funnier, more charismatic, or more creative than anyone else. It's that she was obsessively consistent. She took the exact same low-effort formula that was already working for thousands of other girls and just did way more of it at the right time and with a look that was already an S-tier market fit. She certainly didn't outclass anyone on taste or storytelling. She outworked them on volume. Now, personally, I'm a huge advocate for a more thoughtful approach, what I call a brand-based monopoly, turning a creator into a one-of-one, differentiated character that nobody else can replicate. But Sophie represents the other viable path. If you can identify an immature, nascent platform or a format early enough, and your creator's look is already super monetizable, you can brute force your way to dominance just by posting more than everyone else. To really understand this, let's zoom out from OnlyFans and talk about Jenna Marbles. It's very likely you're asking, who the fuck is Jenna Marbles? And that's exactly my point. Jenna Marbles was one of the most successful OG YouTubers in the world. She hasn't posted a video in 6 years, and she still has 20 million subscribers. But if you go back and watch Jenna's old videos, they're absolute garbage by today's standards. If a random unknown creator uploaded that exact same content today on a fresh channel with no audience, the algorithm would bury it. But in 2010 to 2012, YouTube was still in its awkward teenage years. There weren't that many good creators. The algorithm was way less competitive, and audiences were starved for any personality-driven content. She was just there at the right time. The timing meant that the bar for production, branding, and differentiation was much lower than it is today. Her style worked purely because she hit that wave early, right as the platform was beginning to figure itself out, and she showed up consistently. And in the early 2010s, that was literally all it took to get millions of subscribers. Sophie did the exact same thing, just in a different ecosystem. What BB missed with his question is that timing changes the standard for quality. On an immature platform, the question is something like, are you here and posting at all? And on a mature platform, the question becomes, why should I care about you specifically when there are 10,000 or 100,000 of you? Jenna Marbles could get away with shaky webcam rants. Early TikTok girls could blow up dancing to whatever Doja Cat song was trending that week. But once those platforms matured, the bar got higher. Storytelling, editing, pacing, niche positioning, emotional connection, plus volume and consistency all became necessary preconditions for success. Sophie's rise happened right around the tail end of the just show up and jiggle era of TikTok and Instagram Reels. She wasn't inventing a new format, she wasn't innovating, she just maxed out the existing meta at the exact moment when that meta still had insane returns. By the time the average creator or agency clocked what was happening and tried to replicate it, the window was already starting to close. Yet many, if not most agencies, are still operating under the assumption that it is 2023 and this shit still works. So I'll say it loud and clear and as unambiguously as possible. If you are watching this now, you cannot copy and paste Sophie's exact playbook and expect Sophie-level results. Not because your creator is lazy or ugly or cursed by the algorithm, whatever that means, but because the era that made Sophie possible is over. In fact, here's something that might shock you. Sophie's recipe isn't even working for Sophie anymore. I did the math to prove it, so that once and for all, I can demonstrate to you, dear viewer, that even creators at the very top are no longer able to get away with making shit content and expecting to see the same gains. Let's compare Sophie to Bryce Adams, a creator who has less than a quarter of Sophie's following on Instagram. So here's a pound-for-pound comparison of Sophie's Instagram and Bryce's Instagram. Sophie has 8.4 million followers. In her last 500 reels, she's obtained 1,326,061,386 total views, which gives us an average view per post of 2,652,123 and an average VTFR, that's view to follower ratio, of 0.32. By all accounts, that's pretty average. Now let's look at Bryce. Bryce has 1.8 million followers, less than a quarter of Sophie, but her total views across her last 500 reels, 1,703,429,925, over 400 million more views than Sophie with just a quarter of the following. In addition, her average views per post are 3,406,860, and her average VTFR compared to Sophie's 0.32 is 1.89. Every single post she makes, on average, gets almost double her followership in net new impressions. In other words, Bryce generates 6 times more views per follower than Sophie, and she reaches almost 1 million more people per post, despite only having a quarter of Sophie's overall following. So even in raw views per post, not on a relative basis, not a ratio, Bryce outperforms Sophie by 28%. So as you can see, Sophie Rain's social performance is quite average compared to people who are actually crushing it. And in my opinion, a majority of her market dominance can be attributed to the last piece of the puzzle was actually an insight that I gleaned from a conversation with Liam and Chad, the CEO and CMO of one of the largest agencies in the world, TDM. Sophie did not just blow up off of organic socials. Her management team pieced together a full-scale, multi-platform awareness campaign that included, but was not limited to, massive Twitter shout-out and other SFS networks, paid promos and other paid ads traffic inside of the OnlyFans ecosystem, a deliberately provocative PR narrative of being a devout Christian and a virgin that drove tons of controversy and consistently hit not just socials, but mainstream news and media outlets, and collaborations with mainstream creators, rappers, and streamers that kept her name in circulation. By the time the average horny 18 to 34-year-old guy finally clicked her Instagram profile, he hadn't just seen her doing a single TikTok dance to an NLE Choppa song. He'd been all-out assaulted on multiple platforms with Sophie's name, face, and story, each echoing across totally different parts of the internet and brute forcing her brand into his psyche. All of this combined produces a storyline that pulls her out of just another OF girl territory and into this is a public figure we should talk about territory, a household name. So, Bolonzo Brinko, to answer your question, Sophie Rain is not proof that content doesn't matter. She's proof that if you have S-tier market fit looks, and you hit a platform bull market at exactly the right moment, and you're backed by a ruthlessly efficient distribution machine, you can brute force your way into a nearly 9-figure career off of the most mid content imaginable. But unless you have all of that going for you, that cocktail is not replicable in 2025. Sophie Rain is a fascinating case study and certainly instructive, but making this video didn't fundamentally change my belief that constructing thoughtfully curated, brand-based monopolies is a much, much better strategy than praying for 2023 results in a 2025 media landscape. So to recap, your homework here should be to ask yourself 3 questions. 1, where can I still be the very first or at least early to a niche instead of the 10,000th clone? 2, what thing or combination of things can my model do that nobody else is doing? And 3, how can I package my model in a compelling way and distribute my best content to as many eyes as possible? If you want help answering those questions for your own models, that's literally what I do for a living. And if you're interested in my consulting services, just fill out the application in the description of this video. And if not, if you enjoyed this or otherwise got value out of it, please be sure to like, subscribe, and drop a comment with a suggestion for my next video topic while you're at it. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.